Holiness Dr. Bhakti Vasudeva Swami Maharaj, Sannyasi and initiating Guru of ISKCON and a global management and leadership scholar whose works have been published in several peer review publications as well as other global managerial publications. We already had his words of blessings in the morning. Without much delay, I want to request Dr. His Holiness Bhakti Vasudeva Swami Maharaj to kindly enlighten us with this wonderful session. You'll get to know about it as he speaks, but it's a very, very essential topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is nothing but a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, Bhashyoyam Brahma Sutrana.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pista Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityananda. Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Swayamvadi Pasatadi Satari Manchakalpatari Dhacha Kripasundya Evata Patipanam Vaishnava. So, thank you very much for your participation in this conference. And my topic of discussion, a brief discussion, is on the three phases of realizing the Absolute. The three phases of realizing the Absolute. And this thesis is from the Bhagavad Purana or Srimad Bhagavatam. Basically, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the commentary of the Vedanta Sutra, Vaishnava commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. For those of you who have not had a chance to romance with the Srimad Bhagavatam, do find the time to do so, because it really is very juicy and very in-depth. So, a number of people, we have three categories of scholars or transcendentalists who are pursuing or who are trying to realize the absolute truth. There are those who are treading on the path of the all-pervasiveness of the Brahman effulgence of the Lord. And this Brahman effulgence of the Lord is basically the aura that is emanating from Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna plays flutes, but he also has an aura. And this aura radiates from his transcendental body, and it permeates the whole of the cosmic creation. And this is traditionally referred to as Brahma. So, when someone is pursuing the path of self-realization based on the idea that the Lord is all-pervasive, the Lord is Brahman, we cannot dispute that fact, because it's documented in the Bhagavatam. But it is a relative truth. A relative truth of the Absolute. In other words, that is not the summum bonum of self-realization. It's an aspect of it. It's a phase. And so, the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Purana specifically, chapter 1, Canto 1, chapter 2, text 11, mentions Badanti Tattva Vedas, Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Sajjati. And this sums up what I just mentioned earlier, that the Lord, or the absolute truth, is realized or can be realized in three phases. So when we hear someone talking about Brahma, it doesn't mean that they are not they're not saying something substantial. They're saying something substantial. But if the person or those who are following on that path conclude that that is absolute, then that's where there's a problem. And we have also the Paramatma, the localized aspect of the Lord, situated in the heart region of each and every one. Ishwara Sarvabhutanam Redi say, Arjuna Tistit. Lord Krishna mentions specifically in the Gita that he is situated in each and everyone's heart. And this is a mystery for most of the biologists. I remember one young man in Florida. He told me how he had met me. He's one of the Gurukulis. So he had met me. He had met me, and I had this mood of pushing young people to go to school. So he had met me, and he invited me to his place. So I had asked him, "What are you doing with your life? You finished your Gurukul, you married, but what are you doing to fend for yourself?" So in any way, during our conversation, I casually mentioned to him he needs to go to school. So somehow or the other, and I do this to a lot of people. So somehow or the other, he went to school. He went to study biology. And one day, we met in New Vrindavan, and so he came to pay obeisances. And I didn't really recollect his face. So he was telling me how, when we met in Florida, I had asked him to go to school. And he said he has finished his degree in biology. And he told me the story about one of his professors, because he had questioned the professor about when the blood is leaving the heart, the biologists believe that the blood is purified when it's leaving the heart. So he asked the professor, a female professor, a white professor, why is that? And the professor said that, researchers, scientists have been working on this, and hopefully they will arrive at some conclusion. Arrive at some conclusion about why, when the blood is leaving the heart, the blood is apparently purified. What's responsible for it? So the professor, gave some excuses. They're working on it. I mean, it's like the normal traditional post-dated checks. So he asked the professor that, would you like me to share the Vedic views on this point? So the professor, he said that we professors, we are open to learning. We want to learn from anybody. So if you have an answer to this, please share with me. So he told the professor how the Lord, who is all pure, Pavitra, is localized in the heart region of each and every embodied soul. And because of the presence of that super soul, and that is why when the blood reaches that region, the blood automatically becomes purified. So the professor, who was supposedly his professor, she became his student. So every here and then, they will meet, and he will educate her on the science of the super soul. And so, not everyone have that opportunity or that chance to be able to learn something from their students. But as academics, we learn from anybody. And so, the Lord is localized in the heart of each and every one as the super soul. And this is one of the reasons why we need to revamp our ideologies about treating people like the way we will treat the Lord, because actually the Lord is located in each and everyone's heart. So if we treat people nicely, we are actually treating the Lord nicely. If we are abusive to people, that also implies that we are in ignorance, because everyone is a temple. Every embodied being is a temple of the Lord because of the presence of the super soul. Now, the issue with people who are toying on the path of Brahman realization and the yogis who are prosecuting the path of transcendence based on the worship of the supersoul or efforts, austerities geared towards realizing the supersoul. The problem with that is when you perceive the supersoul, when you perform all of your austerities, and even you perceive the supersoul, there is a general tendency to think that you are that supersoul. But just like Mohan Rupa Prabhu had mentioned in his talk, there's a difference between the Jiva and the Paramatma. There's a difference between the Supreme Lord and the Jiva. And so, if one is not properly guided, there's no problem in trying to pursue the yogic path of endeavoring, performing austerities to realize the supersoul. But if one has no proper guidance, there is always a chance to be spiritually abusive of his spiritual identity. And beyond the understanding that the Lord is the supersoul, there is also that aspect of the Lord, Bhagavan, the possessor of 6 major opulences. And so just like we have personalities, the Lord also has a form. But his form is transcendental. This form is spiritual. His limbs are interchangeable. We eat with our mouths. We pick the food with our hands. And we send it to the mouth. The mouth will, the teeth, whatever, the tongue will help in drilling the food before we send it to the stomach for further drilling. But the Lord doesn't have to go through all of this process. He can eat just by glancing over the food. So that is a major difference between the Jiva and the Supreme Lord. Bhagavan can do anything with his different limbs. And so, the idea that, bottom line is that there are 3 phases of realizing the absolute truth. And when we hear of someone talking about Brahman realization, you see, these other aspects, the Brahman realization and the Paramatma, the tendency is they tend to think that when at the end of this life you merge into the Brahma Jyoti, especially Brahmavadis. You merge into the Brahman Jyoti, and that Brahman Jyoti is the effulgence of the Lord. Now, Lord Brahma is the supreme Lord of this universe. He is our supreme authority. Now, according to Lord Brahma and his other demigods, they address this issue of attaining Brahman realization, merging into the effulgence. The result of the high density of austerities that people perform to be able to attain Brahman realization, to merge into the effulgence of the Lord. Brahma said, Yenye Ravidaksha Vimukta Maninas, Pravasta Bhava, Avisuddha Buddha. The conception is that those who merge into the Brahman effulgence, they think they are liberated. But according to Lord Brahma, he said this is due to impure intelligence. Avisuddha Buddha. Lord Brahma went on to explain that even the very conception of I am liberated because I merge into the Brahman effulgence, this is Vimukta Manana. This is liberation in mind only. Why? Because at some point in time, the Brahman realized Jiva falls back into the material universe. And this is why Lord Brahma discourages followers treading on the path of Brahman realization. Because the ultimate goal is to merge into the Brahman effulgence. Now, there are so many spiritualists on this planet, but majority of the transcendentalists are treading on the path of Brahman realization. A majority of the people, in fact, we have the Vaishnav. The Vaishnav community is a minority. And so, when we understand in principle that even the Vedanta, like is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, that even the essence of Vedanta is to know Krishna. In fact, Krishna is the compiler of the Vedanta. And so if we are doing something, we have to ask ourselves, what is my goal? Or what is my objective? And even beyond that, what are my objective criteria? Objective criteria here implies, what are the tools I will use to be able to attain my goal? And so, luckily, all of you have the great fortune of being born in India, of staying in India. And you have this philosophy right from childhood. So it's not something new to you. And essentially, what we do need to help ourselves with is to expound and explore the different traditions so that we can have a coherent conclusion about what we intend to use our life for. Because otherwise, the whole concept of, you do your thing, you have your philosophy, and, I have mine, it doesn't work. And so it is important for us to understand that, yes, there are different transcendentalists, and these different transcendentalists, they are pursuing different goals, not the same goal. The Brahmavadi is pursuing one goal. The yogi is trying to also pursue a specific goal. And the Vaishnava, or the devotees of Lord Krishna, they aspire to live with Krishna in the spiritual world. Therefore, they worship Lord Krishna. And in fact, if one even is trying to worship Lord Krishna, and he wants or she wants to do that exclusively without the worship of Radharani, again, it becomes such a difficulty. Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, he composed a poem when he was aboard the Jaladuta on his way to America. And one of the first verse of that poem, Prabhupada mentioned, Krishna taba punya habeba e punya koribe jabe Radharani kosehabe druva ati bole tumaita. He said, brothers, if you want to attain Krishna, worship, please Srimati Radharani. If without pleasing Srimati Radharani, the question of attaining Krishna, achieving Krishna, becomes completely impossible. And so Lord Chaitanya also has encouraged his followers to embark on this process of bhakti, worshipping Krishna and Radharani, which is something very simple. And these days, you don't even need to give up your service. You don't need to give up whatever you're doing. You simply integrate chanting, sadhana in your daily routine. And so you find us, we chant Krishna's name every day. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And when you do this, you will have the lived experience, transformative lived experience. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for these wonderful words.